Now, on Gio Reyna, we mentioned on our last pod that Dortmund have told him to find a new club in the summer, and already a couple of possibilities have emerged. There are reports that Rangers in Scotland and LAFC are interested. Other suitors are expected to emerge, but so far it's those two. What do you make of it?
So the physical nature of going to Rangers and that league is something that on the surface you would say, well, you don't want. I think a lot of people would look at Gio Reyna, understanding he has had some struggles, but still recognizing the talent and the skill and the type of player he is, and say, all right, I'd like him to go to maybe a more of a La Liga, maybe Eredivisie type of situation. Having said that, if you're going to go to Scotland, go to one of the teams that's going to have most of the ball, is better than pretty much everybody else in the league, and you're going to be able to play a little bit there. But do you really want to go to Scotland if you're Gio Reyna? And if the alternative is coming back to the United States and MLS, which is certainly a possibility, it's a very, very different type of decision and a very different type of circumstances here. But Gio Reyna going to Rangers, I think he'll play, but I don't think it changes him necessarily as a player, other than playing, and which is important.
Keep in mind, Rangers have a nice lineage of Americans, including his father, Claudio Reyna, also DeMarcus Beasley, Carlos Bocanegra, our good friend Maurice Edu, more recently Malik Tillman, James Sands. But I agree with you. It does strike me as a bit of an odd fit. Now, I am an unapologetic Euro snob, so I do think if a quality club in Serie A or La Liga emerges, that would be a better play than going back to MLS. And perhaps that club could do for Gio's career what AC Milan have done for Pulisic. However, even I acknowledge, as you start moving down the food chain in Europe, then it does become a bit of a conversation. And if it's Rangers versus LAFC, I might lean LAFC. I think that might be the better fit.
Would you also acknowledge that Gio Reyna at a team that is, struggling to stay up, as much as we talk about fighting through things and grit and, experiencing those moments where you got to get down and dirty, which is certainly beneficial to Gio Reyna or anybody else, you'd certainly acknowledge that Gio Reyna, given what he is as a player, would do better at a team where you have the ball and where his skills are put on display.
Absolutely agree 100% with that.
All right. So if it were to come down to something like LAFC, you're already having that question here, because again, when you go to MLS, there is that parity and that manufactured parity that you have. So just because you're going to LAFC, which is a better team than others, but the difference and the disparity between others isn't as great as a Rangers type of situation or elsewhere. I think that going to LAFC in this moment in time for Gio Reyna, and many others, by the way, is better than going to someplace like Rangers. And I know the Euro snobs out there will poo-poo that, and maybe even my friend over here, David Mosse, will poo-poo that. But I don't even think that there's a question in terms of the change of scenery. And I don't know Gio Reyna in a personal way, but I gotta feel that if it just came down to Rangers and LAFC, he would prefer coming to Los Angeles and playing for LAFC.
And no, I buy that. Like I said, I'm a Euro snob, but you go far down the food chain in Europe, and at a certain point, even I start to say that MLS is a better play than some of these teams. In terms of the weekend across Europe, we'll begin in Serie A. AC Milan with a tough game. They will host third place Atalanta.
All right, so AC Milan right now in 9th place, obviously struggling to get anywhere close to, Europe. But let's see here, 51 points right now. And, Lazio's sitting in that final 6th place that plays, I don't know, one of those tournaments over there, 56. But obviously, from an AC Milan perspective, they want to be in Champions League. That would start at 59 points. So they're going to have to go on a run, but it looks like that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. Juventus away to Parma. Parma are battling relegation. I could tell in speaking to Sean Sullivan yesterday, he's one of these younger Serie A fans who views Parma as just a perennial also-ran. He has no idea how good they were in the 90s. Parma-Juventus in those days, that was one of the glamour fixtures in Serie A. In the 96-97 season, they finished first and second. Juventus finished just 2 points above Parma for the title. You played against Zola.
The other Baggio.
Dino Baggio.
Yes.
Zola, Aspria, a young Gigi Buffon, a young
Fernando
Fabio
Couto.
Cannavaro. Oh, my God.
Yes, it was it was strange what was happening. And, the Parmalat company obviously had a lot of money because you would go and play in this stadium and, you would play at San Siro or, down in Rome or something like that. And then you would show up at the Parma Stadium and it was not a great stadium. And yet they had all of this incredible talent on display. And for that moment, they were, one of the elites. Obviously now, things have changed. And, when you're playing against teams that are fighting for relegation, obviously they're backed into a corner, and it can be dangerous. When you're playing against teams that have already been relegated. So, for example, if you're Serie A right now, Monza is going down. Nothing is going to happen. There is a sense of, obviously, resignation to the fact that this is happening. But there's also, what comes to that, a sense of freedom, which can be dangerous when you are a team that needs to get 3 points. So just because they're showing up in the bottom or in a relegation zone type of thing, don't necessarily think that it's going to be a pushover for any team.
We go to the Premier League next. Crystal Palace will play host to Bournemouth. We had some midweek action in the Premier League. On Wednesday, Newcastle hammered Palace 5-0. Newcastle have surged up to third. I was texting with Warren Barton about it. He's buzzing. But for Palace, remember, they were coming off a 5-2 defeat to Manchester City at the weekend. So Chris Richards and company have conceded 10 goals in their last 2 matches. We'll see if they can tighten things up against Bournemouth.
Now, you mentioned, Newcastle in third. They're only 4 points behind Arsenal. Obviously, everybody's let Liverpool go, and they're going to win the league. That's all fine. But Newcastle, who we've talked about now for years in terms of the ownership and the influx of money and the return on investment. So Warren Barton and company must be loving this moment right now.
Liverpool can actually clinch the title this upcoming weekend if they win and Arsenal lose. So we'll keep an eye on that.
And then we have the a walk of honor, or whatever they call that, where the winners have already won, and whatever games they play, the opposition forms a corridor of honor when they walk out to the field. I always thought that was interesting.
And so Palace, Bournemouth, Richards versus Tyler Adams will be interesting. Bournemouth, we know, is in that scrum fighting for European places, as is Fulham. Fulham will host Chelsea. I read an interesting article. Fulham at times this season have employed Anthony Robinson as more of a wing back rather than a left back. And that has caught the attention of Manchester United boss Ruben Amorim because he likes to play in a back three system with wing backs. And so that might make United more prone to go after Robinson this summer.
Yeah, I mean, he can play in a back four, and he certainly can play in a back five, if you will, and play on that left-hand side. So, but that Anthony Robinson is piquing interest of clubs should come as no surprise, because now multiple years you have definitive proof that he is arguably the best, to your point, left-sided player in the EPL, and in a situation where, for the elites, this is somebody that is available that you can get and would be an upgrade to what you have. And certainly when you're talking about somebody like Manchester United. So to piggyback on what we were talking about earlier this week, is that a step up or down for
I'm not so
Jeddah?
Sure anymore. Keep in mind, in the battle for European places in England, there are some moving parts there because Manchester United or Tottenham could still win the Europa League. Crystal Palace could win the FA Cup. I haven't really dug into all the permutations and how that would affect which teams go where in terms of Europe, but you have that to keep in mind as well.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.